board that we were using in the first meetings, and there is a box that says open questions. One of those open questions that came from the type form that I passed around was, what does it mean to be a pluralistic community? So I'll pass to Juan.
Well, thanks, Livy. I think that to be a pluralistic community means to accept everyone without discrimination, and in terms of equity, and that the organization is welcoming for new members and for different points of view. Yeah, I think that is what pluralistic means, and I will pass it to Septimus.
Well, it's the first time I hear that word, but I'm thinking like more about like what Juan was saying. Like I like a community where everyone feels comfortable and everyone feels respect. Doesn't matter where they come from or what they are. Like it doesn't matter. And I'll pass it to Mateo.
Hey, so I guess that a community that is pluralist, I guess it has to offer a good environment for the coexistence of multiplicity of different aspects, maybe characteristics among the groups or individuals or whoever who is part of that community. So inclusiveness is one part of that, and I think that pluralism is maybe a tough word for it. Is maybe the one that embraces the best characteristics of a good community or society. So yeah, I think it's that allows the coexistence of different aspects. Call it individuals, call it groups, call it whatever. And I'll pass it to Santi.
I think absolutely the same, but on top of welcoming everyone, is also a community that looks to welcome plurality, not only just welcomes anyone who wants to join, but also tries to have a diversity of members from all over who have different points of view, so that enriches the community and makes it much more. Pass it to Tonga.
Yeah, I agree with most of or all of what you say. Right now, I don't know what to say. I'll pass it to Septimus.
I already went. I'll pass it back to Griff.
Yeah, I actually didn't know what this meant. I had to Google it just now. Google says, in pluralist culture, this is Google, not in pluralist culture, groups not only coexist side by side, but also consider qualities of other groups as traits worth having in the dominant culture. Pluralist societies place strong expectations on the integration of members rather than expectations of assimilation. And that last line is what really got me, where it's like, it's not about trying to get, like, for instance, immigrants to learn English and like be like everyone else. It's more about like everyone else being like, man, they make really delicious food. We need more of that. Wow, what else do? Oh man, that's really cool too. Why aren't these things more popular? And so I think just deriving off that is this concept of finding each different little subculture inside of the community to have value in itself, and to celebrate that value and encourage everyone else to learn from it and sing kumbaya together as they walk through, sit around the fire, that kind of a thing. And more than just respect people's differences, like look for ways that those differences can be incorporated into the dominant culture. I'll pass it to Atta.
Yeah, I was also thinking that in pluralistic community would be accommodative to people's different backgrounds, and also to provide kind of common spaces where dialogue between different subgroups can happen and they can peacefully coexist. For this context, it is like token engineers, people from tech space, people from more Softgov approach, like people from comms, people with different backgrounds and different kinds of ways of working, being able to live together and respect each other's space. Yeah. I pass it to Jess.
I think it just the question is, what does it mean to be a pluralistic community? And so it seems that it's not such an easy word. And Griff just Googled it. So I'll just post the meaning in the notes. But I mean, yeah, plural comes from plural.
What does it mean to be a pluralistic community is the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess for me, I'd say I'm like racking my brain for my old university poli-sci courses. Yeah, I think it's just welcoming diversity, diverse voices. I think for me, it means a lot. Like I've been in projects where there's kind of groupthink, and people fall into this tendency of thinking that always agreeing is good. And I think that's why it's so awesome. We have Juan, who's like putting so much work in conflict resolution, and even having attention and awareness around this as being a discussion as like in relating in any sense, like personal relationship or whatever. I mean, you're not going to see eye to eye. So welcoming diverse opinions, I would say, is part of a pluralistic community, and finding ways to integrate all of this like perceptions to finding the highest truth for everyone. And I'm not sure who's gone, so I'll pass it back to you, Lydia. Jake.
Hi. Okay. Livia, please feel free to cut me off because I'm going to try and do my best to get this out as quick as I can. So once upon a time, I read a book. It was by Russell Bourne. He is a professor at Brown University. It was called Gods of War, Gods of Peace, and how religion shaped the early Native Americas. So something I think is really interesting about what you're actually asking about is the Algonquin Nation. And the Algonquin Nation was at its prime, at its peak, over 2 million strong. And this is what actually scared Europe, because they came here and found a collective of people that were very different. All the tribes that made up the Algonquin Nation, and no one historically knows how many there actually were. But there was many. I mean, there was hundreds and hundreds of various tribes. And even within that, there were ones that were in different levels compared to the others. For instance, the Mohawk made up a very warlike military idea of the Algonquin. They were the protectors. They fought within. They all fought. They had struggles and conflicts, but they did have a center. There was a tribal council that wasn't exactly centered. It wasn't like a government, but they did have a way of life. And twice a year, these tribal leaders that were respected throughout the entire Algonquin nation would meet and would kind of like decide different things that were going on for their entire area. There were so many different groups a part of this that collectively always had a center and just lived their way of life together. They were always open to whatever this tribe did or that tribe did. They didn't the lesser details, you know, as you would state, they didn't matter. They had this profound understanding that the whole worked together for the benefit of what they were doing. So even this individual tribes, like their way of life might have just been about fishing and sewing or something, right? Like that would have been their life, or like that's what they did really well, I should say. That's what they did really well. So when they traded with other tribes, they were really good at fishing and they were really good at making clothes. Okay, that was what they provided. And then the Mohawk may have came in and they needed clothes, and they were really good at killing people. So like, or killing animals, really, which was their big theme until the Europeans showed up. So they were really good at hunting. So then they would have showed up and like, we need these clothes, and well, here's all of this meat. Okay, you know what I mean? And there wasn't all of these fights like that. They didn't have all these like diplomatic problems. They had really clear understandings and objectives. Now they did have in battles that went on due to different beliefs in gods, but it wasn't nearly anything like we see today. And their council really held them together. So you could kind of think of decentralized trusted seed as kind of like their council. Okay? And the TEC, this is kind of crazy, but the TEC is kind of like the Algonquin nation. So we have all of these different people from all over the world, hopefully, like beyond, you know, and we're all different, and we have like little subgroups, like little working groups of our own little tribes that all make up this bigger piece. You know what I'm saying? And then we're all just like cooperating. If you don't know much about the Algonquin nation, you should Google that because it's really actually pretty incredible. And that's actually what really scared the British. That was the reason for the Boston Tea Party and everything else, because this massive 2 million strong thing was actually here. Okay, that's it. Who hasn't gone?
Nate hasn't gone.
Sorry, what was
Go, Nate.
The question is, what does it mean to be a pluralistic community?
Pluralistic community. I guess it's kind of that one in many and many in one. It's kind of I guess when in terms of a community, I would say, you know, individuals playing multiple roles, and having, you know, wearing a lot of hats within a community and making sure that, you know, everybody has the freedom to move around to do different things. But then again, you can look at it the other way and say it's just a diverse set of ideas and perspectives. That'd be my best answer off the cuff.
Thanks. And I'll pass to Den.
Hey.
Den, you're a robot.
Can you hear me? AFK, anyway.
Okay, we can hear you now.
Pero supongo que la mitad de la... Anyway,
Den,
and so many cosmogonies and how we so many
Then it's really hard to hear you. Maybe you can try to
Or
refresh.
just move ahead.
Okay. Okay, Tonga, you want to take it?
No, I wanted to tell Dan
I
that
had a very bad connection.
yeah, the connection wasn't helping.
But you haven't done yet, right? Does anybody else?
Yeah, a pluralistic community makes me think of the entire world and not letting anyone out. That everyone also has freedom to do stuff without the fear of being like criticized, but also with the ability of being criticized at the same time. So yeah, and try to fill the spaces somehow. Yeah, I pass it to Santi.
Already when?
I think everyone went. Cool. Yeah, those are great answers. I didn't think we would go that long with that question. So thanks, everyone. And I was in a similar place to Jeff, to Jess today, thinking about how to organize the path of the working group now that it feels like there are a few blockers for us to move. So we had a session last week to work on the code of conduct of the multiple channels and on the cultural agreements. So that's a document that it's progressing, but it's a beast of a document. So it's going to take a little bit of time. And thanks so much, Zaptimus, for filling your session. And Juan also put some work into it. That's awesome to see that there's progress there already. And so we have the agreements, and they are one of the principles. And there's a lot of work there, and they're also tied to legal. So we're moving also to gravity and conflict management. So we're kind of moving slowly there. And also the mutual accountability. I was talking to one today. We made some progress in the type form and in the structure of the conflict management flow. But mutual accountability, it's also more than that. It's the preventive part, like before the conflict comes, because if we understand all of the agreements and we are complying to those agreements and we are mutually assisting each other to do so, we're probably going to hit into less conflicts. But then to understand mutual accountability, we kind of have to understand and to have those agreements. So I feel like there's a lot of things entangled in one another right now. And there is the proposal structure that needs to move forward. So I guess it would be helpful also to have a sense making around what is the directions we're taking. And I was looking into the mural board. Let me share my screen. That started this working group, and it's also in the notes document that it's in the general chat. If you guys can go there too. So this was the mural board that we started. So this is a type form that many people filled out, and there's like many answers here. So we had sessions to distill these answers into these other boards and have some big challenges and open questions and some of the fronts that we were going to face. So it was actually really nice to look into this board today and see that we basically didn't really have a culture. We were like starting to move with all of the working groups, and a lot of people were starting to come. So it's awesome to see that we actually implemented so many of these ideas. And I was looking into the big challenges, and all of these things came from the board. So a system designed by unilateral thinking, I feel like this is a challenge that we put aside. I do feel like we are a pluralistic community right now, and it was nice to hear from the answers today too. I think we have a fractal shape and also diverse opinions and multiple cultures. It's hard to know when is appropriate to take the lead initiative while also not stepping on people's toes and knowing how the power structures work. Open to feedbacks here, but I also feel like we created a structure so this wouldn't happen, with the roles and the working group leads and having this very open. Anyone who wants to lead a working group can take the initiative, making this into a duocracy that everyone can feel like they have the agency to take decisions and to propose any type of work. And then this one, it's too easy. When we are remote, it's easy to have a negative experience association with someone or something, then stop engaging and does never rebuild positive associations or evolve because you are around the person and have to continue as comrades, getting through daily life together. Oh, also the sexism is real. Someone anonymous wrote this in the forum, and I think we are addressing all of these issues with gravity. And I'm really happy to say that I don't feel like we are a sexist community, and this is really important. And accountability, that we also went through a lot of sense making around accountability. And Ostrom also talks about this in the book, how a lot of accountability comes from trust and building trust among each other. And I feel like we've been also building a culture of trust that has been evolving with time. And this is definitely helping into the accountability. I feel like many of the tasks that many of us took, we did finish and move forward with it, or asked each other for help. So I wanted to bring this up and share this board so everyone can jump into it and see like where we are. And also there are so many ideas here that we can still apply them, so there are tasks that can be picked up. And I'm talking for a long time now, but I just wanted to hear if you guys have any feedback from that, and mostly like share the progress of our work that it's been from all of us. And it feels really great to have to see this progress. If anyone
I really like all that from Softgov. There were other groups that were created, like Gravity and Transparency, that are work that is complementary to the cultural build we are building. And for me, I have this term in my mind because of the chapter of today's book club, and it's a quasi-voluntary compliance. And it is when people like voluntarily follow the rules because they somehow like agree to them, recognize them, and know that those rules are to serve the better of the whole. So I think that that is something that we are aiming, and somehow it's like a goal to achieve, because that is the way that we can have people in the community to not feel obligated to do stuff, but to feel that there are just some rules on how can they collaborate, but that they are free to collaborate, and that we are not imposing anything, but more than imposing, we are just giving legitimacy to social agreements. So I think the experiment of SoftGov is very, very good for the whole purpose of the organization.
Thanks, Juan. Yeah, so I guess I just wanted um, to understand to hear from you guys if there is something that you think it's missing now that we are moving these pieces, these big pieces that are moving a little bit slower and kind of interdependent to each other. If there is something that you feel like we could move forward in this time, if you have any feedback, ideas, like how can we continue to improve the culture in this sense, and then we can move on to talk about the proposal section that Jess raised.
I'm just gonna quick jump in. The Espanol, the other language that, you know, to center and brand off to an entirely, you know, such a giant group of people. That's really, really awesome. And that would involve so much of this incorporating with what we're trying to do, you know, that's communication, language. That's it, you know. You know, that's all we got. So that's really, really, really cool. I think if we worked on that, you know, like Mateo just brought up in the previous, you know, meeting, that would be really, really cool.
Yeah, I agree, and I think like maybe you are used to it already, but when many of us speak in English, we speak much slower than what we usually do, and maybe we could say many things if a few calls were in Spanish.
Oh, I know you guys do, because I'm here when you guys are talking and you can really talk. Woo!
I think many of you understand Spanish. I don't know which languages. I know Griff does. I know you, Jake, speak some Spanish. I don't know how much. I don't know Jess. Libby, do you speak Portuguese, right? You speak Portuguese, yeah. And Nate? I don't know.
Sorry.
Yeah, do you
speak Spanish? No,
yeah.
not really.
No? Okay.
Quito.
Well, and I know the rest too. And you, Jess? I saw you unmuted. Yes.
Oh, that was an accident. But I mean, I did like level 1 Spanish when I was in Ecuador, but that was like 2 years ago. But I would like to learn more.
Well, anytime I'm down to speak in Spanish. But I don't know if it's fun for you.
But yeah, Livia,
Yeah.
actually, oh, sorry. I wanted to respond to your question and say I actually feel like the culture is fantastic. Like I don't think we can be doing anything more in regards to the culture building. I think it's been beautiful experience. I know like the last thing is just like making sure Juan can take off, like, and giving him the support to really launch that. Otherwise, I would say for me, I think what needs energy and attention, and maybe because we're fresh out of the other meeting, I do think like the discussions around governance and continuing the praise system after the launch could use some attention, and how that could look. For me, those are the two areas to kind of transition to maybe now after the holidays. I feel like, yeah, you've been doing a fantastic job in leading everyone and everybody that comes to these meetings every week. Like, all the work you've put in is really like it's paid off, and it's been beautiful to watch.
Thank you. I do agree that governance needs more focus. So we could jump to this point of the agenda and talk about how to funnel signaling proposals and what type of proposals we want to guide to the forum or to conviction voting, because we will have this function of conviction voting that you can both fund proposals, and you can also just make a proposal without requesting any funds, um, and this proposal can still be voted and can be approved. And if it's approved, even if there's no funds, it's signaling something, or it's making some type of cultural agreement. So I think we can't prevent people from submitting a proposal either to the forum or to conviction voting, but how can we organize and funnel to have at least a direction for people to understand where to go, so we can start to build a cultural practice around this? Like, what are the best types of proposals to go to, signaling proposals to go to conviction voting, and what are the best types to go to the forum? Can we have a round of sense making around this?
Before we jump into that, I just want to make sure that everybody has one piece of context, and that's if we have a lot of signaling proposals, this affects the token supply, and that means people will be staking tokens on signaling proposals. So that will basically inherently slow down funding coming out of the DAO. So I think that's one important piece. And I don't know if Griff had anything to add to that, but just to have that understanding that if we have signal proposals, like floods of them, that will basically slow down and very much affect the funding proposals.
At least every implementation of conviction voting so far, besides Aragon's one on mainnet that no one voted on because gas was like $100. Besides that one, the One Hive specifically, especially, has a lot of money. A lot of people voting on abstain in general to adjust the speed of funding. It's been actually a difficult thing with conviction voting that it's usually too easy to fund. But it is worth. But you're absolutely right. When you're voting on a signaling proposal, that means you can't vote on a funding proposal. You only have so many tokens, and they're competitive proposals.
So maybe it would be interesting to have like a funnel that starts in the forum, and then, like, let's say if we want to change the code of conduct, like if we want something that is important, that it would start in the forum and have a few processes, like start with the advice process and then have a voting session in the forum, perhaps a polling to have an idea of how the community is feeling, and then from there elaborate a proposal, like a final proposal that goes to conviction voting, and that would be the like more serious one, let's say.
I think also like examining why would you need conviction voting versus the polling? Like a polling is basically like a 1-for-1 that is easy to cast versus, you know, in conviction voting, you have to stake over time. So you have to feel very strongly. It's real time, like preference signaling. So like at what point would that really become necessary to kind of get this real time sensing for the strong opinions and this kind of like waiting in a preference with skin in the game versus like I can just go and signal with like one vote on a poll. So I guess exploring like what would be a decision, and maybe it's like how important is it? I mean, some people, like for me, I would be fine to vote on the code of conduct as a poll. Like I don't feel like I need to like stake tokens on that. For me, that's fairly like straightforward. But people may feel differently. So I think maybe like coming up with tiers, like voting tiers, like graduated, instead of graduated sanctions, like graduated voting of what are the micro decisions that can be handled with a poll, and what would be a vote that would really need to have a signaling proposal of like people have to actually go and stake tokens and feel that strongly that they let their tokens like sit there over time. I don't know if that's helpful at all in the framing too.
I was going to wait to see if anyone else had something to say, but I think that the general consensus has been in the DAO space that we vote too much, or we expect to vote too much. A lot of times it's better to have small little groups that are focused on these issues that then are held accountable to their decisions by the larger, and so that you don't vote. Voting is something that happens at the edges with the people who are informed and affected by the decision being made. So, for instance, code of conduct should probably be maintained by the Gravity Working Group. The Gravity Working Group gets funding from conviction voting. Gravity Working Group should stay transparent and talk about the decisions they're making over the code of conduct in the forum and maintaining these things. So, you know, I think in general there shouldn't be too much voting. You know, we should go the other direction. Maybe the DAO space is overcorrecting right now, but projects like Colony and some criticisms of people who are in DAOs right now is like, I have other things I'm doing. I'm not gonna pay attention to the code of conduct. Fucking who's paying attention? You do it.
I want to second that. Like, you know, being in crypto too, like that's a big thing of DAOs. There's way too much voting. There's voting on this, there's voting on that, there's this, that, and people just ignore it. And it really gets complacent, and it just gets subjective, and it's a problem. And like, dude, like just more like I really wish everybody would read that book, because this, like the Algonquin was, there's so much similarities, like, and how that was a real physical thing. Like this was a time in history that existed, and it was real, and it went on for a long period of time, you know, and then the fucking Europeans show up, and they got scared. They got scared as hell when they saw how organized they really were. Like this wasn't, this whole term savage, or as they said, it's a French word, sauvage, which means wild, you know, wild people, savages. And no, they weren't. That was all propaganda. They weren't wild people. They were very organized people. And that's why they had to die. They had to kill them. You know, I don't want to try and run down this dark road, but there really is a lot of similarities, and like they really had an ability to create a collective, and on a very, very large scale. They had problems, but they made it work. And like Griff said too, to reiterate that point, there wasn't a bunch of voting. There wasn't a bunch of like town hall meetings. There wasn't a bunch of this or that. There was just an understanding, and then there was a specific, set group that would kind of like keep it all in rein, here and there. It's really wild to me, like the similarities. But anyways, all right, I'm gonna check out.
I'm just going to agree with what Griff said. And I think, too, maybe we are so excited because we have this new technology, like, oh, conviction voting, yes, let's use it for everything. But yeah, I think what Griff said, and also, like, I hope we can explore, and I was talking with Sam about maybe sometime we can come to the point in DAOs where we can delegate our votes to people that we trust, so that we don't have to keep up with every single thing going on, and we don't have to, like, micromanage ourselves and our decisions, like Griff is saying. Even me, like, I was like, oh, should we have a vote for like our brand? And I'm like, wait a second, no, like it's under comms working group. And yeah, we make decisions under, that's why we're Fractal, is we trust each other to make the decisions that we are kind of like have experts around us. So maybe
Plus,
like an
and
exit
like-
tribute, maybe would dandelion voting, sorry, Griff, question is, would the dandelion app that you're talking about, the voting, is that done through conviction signaling? Like, say we want to change the exit tribute, is that something that we would put in conviction signaling, or is that somewhere else in the DAO?
Dandelion voting is normal time boxed yes no voting. And the other thing I was just going to say is like, yeah, working groups doing their work with a strong culture of advice so that people who are affected by decisions are consulted.
Yeah, Nate?
Yeah, I was just going to add that, one of the observations that I've made, especially within DAOs in regards to voting, is that most of the time there's not a guideline or a framework for voting to occur in terms of, what decisions that are being made need to be voted on and what type of voting mechanism is being used for those types of decisions. And so you have a lot of decisions that are being made with the wrong voting mechanism. And a lot of times when that occurs, you get the wrong information. You get the wrong outcome of what you were trying to achieve with that vote in the first place. And so I think that if by establishing some type of guideline or framework for voting and all the different types of voting that we want to initiate within an instance of a commons, I think is very important. But
Yeah, that is a really good point. That sometimes it's not even accurate, the information that comes out, because the voting process was not the best one. But yeah, Juan.
That I didn't have thought what Griff said until now, but a great suggestion, because that way we can have accountability in making, because when the decision is taken by the whole community, when we try to see its accountability, then it relies on the whole community, and at the same time almost to no one. So it's good that they have this kind of capacity to take decisions, and that they were held accountable, because the idea of the working groups is that the people inside the working groups are experts. I mean, today I was in the Rams call, and I mean, I am not an expert, so maybe my participation in that wouldn't like contribute as much if I just let people that is an expert in that topic like take the best decisions, and then to like review, test, and to like learn and from the decisions that people who is expert in that topic take. So I think it's position.
What I wanted to add is like at the beginning I was thinking like, yeah, voting it's good because people is deciding. But then after hearing all your feedback, I come up with the idea maybe we could have like an event to vote like very small things, and like for example like decisions the daily are taken by those people accountability people, but then like we do events and we just revise, and we if we want to decide some changes or whatever, that maybe might be interesting. And another thing I related to the Jake's story, how that people like the trips and like they were organized, but I keep thinking like it's like the warriors were imposing the others somehow, because I'm protecting you, you're giving me that, but they are the ones who have the power to do whatever they want. So I don't think I'm thinking, but I don't understand how they work.
Okay, well, that's a whole nother conversation, Zep. Like, but that doesn't have to do with the commons, okay? Because that just gets into more ideological historical precedents. It's okay, but like, yeah, you want to talk about that? I can talk about that, but that don't. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to share this. Sorry.
No, just wanted to say to Jake, I would love to hear it in another moment. That would be fantastic. But yeah, I'll let you continue, Liv.
Thanks. Yeah, I just want to share that actually we haven't made many decisions in 4 months. We only made 17. We only held 17 voting sessions, and I think it's a good. It's kind of a good flow. Like all of the decisions that we did put up for voting, and there is a lot that happens in the working groups without the need of a voting session, because there is enough coordination happening already, and we've been sharing so much. I agree with everything that has been said, that we created a transparency culture, so anyone can voice if they block any type of movement at any time, because information is available.
I think what's cool here is when you list out all the votes, we basically said, hey, onboarding process, the onboarding vote, the Softgov working group vote, the comms working group vote. There was basically consent by the whole to say, hey, you guys are handling the comms. We need to get, I would like, it'd be cool to see more manifestos be voted on again. But
True. We can talk about that in the call tomorrow. Does anybody else has something to add? So I think I felt like there is a consensus that the least amount of votes to go to CV, the better. And the ones that we can decide in the forum, we should do that. And the ones that we don't need to decide in the forum should be decided in the working groups. So that's kind of the flow of like community, collective, coordination, sense making. Then if there is something that needs to be agreed on, to go to the forum. And if the forum doesn't seem enough, then it goes to CV as a last resource.
And also, Livy, I would like to work on this guideline with you because I think that's important, what Nate was saying. I think that could be something we put on the GitHub board as an issue to start to draft and having that like guidance maybe within the proposal forum section itself on what decisions are made where, so people have an idea of how so that we have this like transparent view into how things are governed.
Yeah, for sure. And that's all. The the code of conduct document too, like the CV proposal terms, dandelion proposal terms, forum proposal terms. And yeah, that would be awesome if we can work together on that. Okay, so last 5 minutes. I just wanted to come back to this board, and we had some onboarding ideas, solutions here, and also education. And I feel like some of this could still be implemented, like maybe coming back with um, a weekly onboarding call to just like be there. And then if someone wants to drop in and hear about what's happening, they can. Having like a few other mediums of information that are not just in the forum or reading, like an AMA session could be really cool. There's some ideas here of things to organize. So I just want to ask if anyone would like to work on any of these things. I know everyone is with a full plate right now, and we're like approaching the end of the year and more closing things than starting things, but we can have just a quick closing round of like if you would like to pick something, and no pressure at all if not, like maybe also you can jump in this board, take a look at like, is there any of these things that seem interesting to start working on, like to produce more knowledge? Sorry, I think I should be more organized in this request, and we could have had time to look at the board.
I want to ask one thing. When on that knowledge, when you ask for transparency, what do you feel you need in there? Maybe it's something I could add to the working group we already have.
Yeah, so this was an old board, and this is great. We can start like, these are almost like GitHub issues that we can start closing because it's done. Actually, transparency is sorted. We have a glossary now. Cultural friend, we kind of started to do that on Airtable, but it didn't pick up so well. It's there, but it could use more love to have like people from different languages communicating to each other. And then an AMA channel, we don't have that. Create courses. So Gravity is about to create a course, and that's awesome. Assign mentors to newcomers. We could discuss this more on the Community Stewards Working Group. Knowledge base wiki. This is basically the forum covered.
Just one thing
Encourage
about the
people to
AMA.
speak.
Oh, sorry.
Uh-huh.
I'd say that the AMA is definitely something we're gonna do for the hatch, and also I think for the trusted seed, maybe all at once. I guess we'll definitely be doing AMAs coming up. Say,
I think a
Nice.
video, maybe an AMA video or just a video explaining whatever we want to transmit for anyone who's onboarding is a great tool. I kind of remember the interview that uh, Grief was done by what's the name of forgot
Manu.
the name of the yeah, the man who made to Griff, and it's on one of those boards. And that's a video that I would suggest any newcomer to watch to get a little understanding of what we're doing. And we could produce one or two more of those, and that anyone who's intending to understand what we're doing and willing to join, I mean, spending 20 minutes watching a video or half an hour watching a video is the minimum that they could do, especially if through that video they're gonna have a bunch of answers to the questions that they may have.
Yeah, I would love to see that video cut up into questions. That would be pretty powerful because I don't think people necessarily want to watch a half an hour video that they don't understand what it's going to tell them. But if the title is some question and the video's length is 3 minutes, like, oh, I'll take 3 minutes to understand the answer to that question.
just so you know, it's not on the board, but Eduardo and I were discussing when we did the forum. I would do like mini videos welcoming people. Also, like a face is nice, but certainly that's a great idea about repurposing Manu's video. And I know Zeptimus, you said you had been interested in some video editing, so maybe we can scope that out if you're willing to work on that. And at least it's a post on the forum as a placeholder until we are able to work on. We're definitely doing an onboarding video for the app, but we need some other videos as well, and they're actually so much quicker than writing for me. So I would love to focus on that as well, in addition to high level narrative, to like getting some videos on the forum. So maybe we can bring it up in comms again January 5th
Awesome.
to scope those out. But I think we already have scope for a few, but maybe Zep, if you would be willing to repurpose Manu's video, I think that's a great suggestion, Griff.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, I'll have to. So, sorry, Zep. I'll just go to the DAO book club, and you guys can continue talking here if you need more time. Sorry for the unorganized call. It's a lot of sense making to do around these things, and thanks so much for all the ideas and the support. And I think we move forward on the clarity for the proposals, so that's great. And I'll do some more work on that mural board and reshare when it's in a better space for us to understand what can still be like used from there. So thanks so much, everyone. We'll be in the book club channel right now. See you there. Bye.
I just wanted to add, during the week, I could rewatch that video of Manu and Grief and just add timestamp, at least so we have like a fast thing, a fast solution, but then we also we work on the onboarding videos that it will take more time, but at least we have this with timestamps and people can just go and watch what they are interested in.
Yeah, I think a forum post that is the question and then a timestamped video would be more than enough. You know, it's not the easiest thing to navigate. Like, oh, it's on YouTube, 3 minutes. Okay, that's, you know, there's a lot of decisions that get made like that. But like quick and dirty, and we really, I think that most of our direction for onboarding will be more impactful. My experience with like people raising money on both sides, me on one side or the other. It's when somebody with authority comes from the group and says, I'm willing to spend half an hour with you answering all of your questions. Getting people to watch videos or read documents, there's just nothing that can beat a one-on-one conversation with someone who has the answers. And then that's what will really move this hatch forward. So yeah. Anyway,
okay.
see you guys.
Yeah.
See you guys in the book club.
Let's go to the book club.
Yeah. See you.
Bye bye. Thanks.